Welcome, adventurers, to the podcast that goes through everything gaming, with your hosts Benji and Donchap. Wherever you're listening in, get ready to shuffle those cards, roll the dice, and count your victory points, because this is Play Up and Chat.
Hello and welcome everybody to the 5th episode of Play Up and Chat. You are currently with me, Don Chap.
And with me, Benji.
And for today's 5th episode, we are going to introduce once again a kind of an RPG related topic, but this time we're going to say that it's about board games.
Definitely, we're going to be jumping into all kinds of different role-playing game themed board games. But before we do, as always, if you enjoy our content and you enjoy listening to what we do, you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We're getting a Twitter up and running very soon. But if you want to support us directly, head over to patreon.com/playupmt.
You can support us as little as €3. If you like our content, this actually supports us to do more for you guys.
Great and wonderful. We will not forget our sponsors, but we'll mention those a little bit later into the episode. So let's dive right in to RPG-themed board games. Don, kick us off.
Okay, so what I think personally, what is RPG themed board games? So my idea of it, right, when someone says this, is I think of D&D or other well-known RPGs that we encounter, be it Call of Cthulhu, Cthulhu's Code actually, Vampire the Masquerade, all the pen and paper ones, the ones that you can actually interact with the dungeon master, but put into a board game setting. So basically, the design of the board game would be very similar to that we see in these games, and put it onto a board game perspective. A couple of them that I can think of right off the top of my head immediately is, once again, D&D related. You know, you have all those board games that come out pre-made by Wizards of the Coast. I think actually another company took over and started putting in their own version of their board game like this. One of them that I know for sure that I actually own and is quite fun to introduce people into D&D especially is D&D Adventure board game, which basically you have 4 tiles and you choose one of 4 characters. You build your little character through like 2 different variants that you can choose from for each character. And then you're going to go through this 4 boards by facing monsters, challenging yourself through an encounter until you meet the big boss in the end and fight to the death.
Okay, but I have to ask, Don, where exactly does the role playing come into this? Because it sounds very, mechanical. When I think of role playing, I do imagine, let's say myself, putting on a voice for my character, diving into this character's understanding on life. How does that fit in? So, for example, we'll take the D&D adventure board games. Like, how does that fit into it?
Okay, so when it comes to this board game in specific, the way I imagine it to be, at least we recently tried it again. We popped open the box and we went through one of the monsters. So the way it would work is that when you are currently during an encounter,
Mm-hmm.
or you are fighting a specific monster, because apparently encounters and monsters are different in this game. Encounter is basically you are presented with a challenge and you have to roll for it. Usually the card would ask you to describe what you would do. So this is where the element of RPing, role playing into your character comes in. So in fact, you have an item deck and you have a backpack deck. And the backpack deck in specific is something that you have a starting backpack of items that are not mechanically used whatsoever. It's just there to give you ideas what to role play with. So, for example, my character, last time I played, had a magnifying glass, right?
Okay,
And
yeah.
one of the things that I could do as a mechanic within my character is create a distraction. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
the role play side of it would be, okay, so I use my magnifying glass, which does absolutely nothing as a mechanic in game, to cause a distraction, trying to use the flares of the sun to create a reflection and bring the monster's attention to me. You roll, and then if it does damage in the situation, you'd say, okay, so I got it exactly in a way that the rays of the sun go through the middle of my magnifying glass and it burns its eye. I create that moment of heat for it. So this is where the element of RPing comes in this specific board game.
Okay.
There are other RPG themed board games that is very hard to roleplay in because it's so mechanical based that you just go through it as a game and very little room for RPing is there. But we'll come to that in a minute.
Yeah, in fact, I do remember the game in question here, and we were playing it last time. And I can see, an element of role playing in there for sure. However, I don't think that any of these games can sort of, replace your favorite tabletop RPG. I mean, sure, it's great. Should even this game, for example, you want to bust open a dungeon, go through a bunch of monsters, and maybe even slay that dragon at the end of it. But I feel like for me, a role playing game has to be more than just a theme.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. Role playing in itself is, in board game perspective, let's put it like that. It has no mechanical use to the game. So whether you RP or not in these board games, there's no real benefit to the outcome, or it doesn't present any disadvantage either. So it's merely immersing yourself into the game. It gives that opportunity. Let's take another board game, for example. I could think of, again, once again, D&D kind of related, or even Pathfinder related, you could say as well, because they're both similar in theme. Role Player is an RPG themed board game. However, I can't see myself role playing whatsoever because it's simply a game where it's building your perfect character sheet. So
Yeah,
it's building your perfect character sheet is what the whole game is about, but you can't really role play for that.
yeah, I agree. It's sort of, let's say, imagine you are building your character sheet, and basically the game uses dice as a mechanic to work out the ability scores, and it uses things like your character's alignment. There is a little bit of flavor text for backstory on the boards as well. However, I really think you have to be so far into role play to be able to role play some of these characters that it gets really difficult because the whole mechanic in the game is really centered around dice. So
But
you're
but even that being said, role player as a board game is even pre role playing. So it's when your character is being created. So do you really role play while your character is being created?
well, I personally have never role played any of my character creations. Having said that, however, I do like to create my characters with a role play in mind. So
As it should be.
yeah, definitely, as it should be indeed. But again, role player is more mechanical. Don't get me wrong, I love the game, but I think for the purpose of this discussion, I would put it down as an RPG themed game, like you rightly said, rather than being an opportunity to go heavily into role playing.
Exactly. And that's the thing. There are games which are themed this way, but it's not meant to be there for role playing purposes. Because like I just said, role player, since it's in the beginning of pre role playing a character itself, it's character creation, and I can't see anyone kind of trying to role play as their character is being developed and coming along. I mean, to be honest, you're so kind of counting numbers during that board game in
Oh
specific
yeah,
to make
yeah.
sure you have the right scores, you're getting to the right point, that there's very little room to even try to role play if there's even any opportunity towards the end of the game itself.
Yeah, because and then the game is just finished there and ready as well. So I think another game that could compare in the sense of being more RPG themed rather than have a possibility for role playing is Munchkin as well, because sure, you have a character, you have a race, a class, and you're equipping this race and class with specific weapons in order to literally, it's a dungeon crawl. Like we spoke about last episode, dungeon crawlers. It's literally a dungeon crawler into cards. Unless you get so immersed into that class and race on the card that, again, like role player, there's not much space for RPing. It doesn't really enhance the game more than it was meant to.
I think the only fun part about Munchkin that you can kind of RP for a moment is when you receive your items or your race or your class. Because again, all of that is pretty much either by chance or it is actually, kind of designed when you're laying cards on the beginning of the game. That's the only time you kind of can role play for just that tiny while. You can't really role play throughout. So yes, I completely agree with you. It's a dungeon crawler that is thematically designed to look like an RPG that we all love and cherish. But the element of role playing, so getting into character, is minuscule. in
Yeah.
that perspective.
Oh, definitely. And at times, I would like to see there being a bit more space for role playing in these kind of games because I feel that RPG themed board games are meant to be there for the times where you don't have a DM, for example, and you're just a group of two or three players who don't know how to DM or haven't gotten into it, or maybe your group of friends are not really feeling like a 4 to 5 hour session of D&D and you just want the D&D flavor. And I think that's what the RPG themed board games are supposed to bring to the table, sort of that flavor of a role playing game.
RPGing, as we know it, as we discussed previously, can be quite overwhelming for some new players, especially. So it might put them off because it might sound so complicated that usually introducing them to RPG from a board game is easier. That being said, there are RPGs that I know of that actually can have that level of
Immersion.
that level of immersion in the game, which makes you feel like you're role playing, which gives you an element of, would your character do this? Is, in this choice at the moment, what kind of mannerisms are you going to be portraying in order to, fulfill an outcome of sorts? So that being said, the RPG that is coming to mind in specific, and I have it to heart, and it's one of my board game gateway board games, I would say, is Betrayal at House on a Hill or Betrayal at Bardur's Gate. It depends which theme you want to go for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was literally going to bring that up because it is one of my favorite games as well. We both have a love for this game, and one of the first, I think, board games that we actually played together. In fact,
Like I said, Ben, it is my gateway board game because the thing is this. As a quick side note here, usually people think of board games as just a traditional Monopoly or something like that. People who have not played board games beforehand. So this is going to immediately tell them, listen, there's a whole new world of board games out there already. And this is kind of one of them. And you just introduce them to Betrayal and you just realize how much fun it is because first and foremost, the replayability of that game is crazy. There's
it's
without
insane.
without the expansion itself, I think there's about 50 different endings
Oh yeah,
you can get to.
and it's all randomized as well, so you can you literally never know what is coming next because it depends on which room you're in, what items, which kind of haunt, and how it triggers, and all of these things. And I think it adds an RPG level of interacting with the world that you cannot control.
Exactly. And in fact, the game itself, if you go through the manuals, there is one page that gives you all the backstories of each character you can actually choose and play. If you don't want to metagame it according to stats, you can actually go into the backstory and say, I can relate to this guy a bit more than the others. And you pick that guy just for RPing's sake. And even when you are actually going through event cards, so you have a scenario and you have to, kind of roll the dice to get the outcome, you can actually kind of go into this little small RPing moment of like, oh no, like this happens to me, and it's so typical of my character go through this, because of my backstory. There is that element of RPing mostly once the haunt begins. I feel.
Oh yeah, mostly. I was going to say actually that I think it offers the most opportunity for role play because depending on what the haunt is and how the haunt plays out mechanically, the player who is essentially taking care of the haunt gets to add their own flair to it, and it can be in the form of anything.
So just really quickly for the listeners out there, if you've never played Betrayal before, it's a really fun game where basically you're a group of people adventuring. If you're playing Betrayal at House on a Hill, it's mystery slash horror themed. You're in a haunted house that basically you're exploring as you go. So tiles are randomly drawn from the tile deck and you're building the house as you go. And you might uncover different events, which usually play along with your mind, your sanity. At some point, once a specific omen in a specific room is triggered, one of the characters, either the person who found it or due to a specific combination of strength or might or whatever, ends up becoming the traitor. And then you open up your separate books, those who are heroes, and then that one person who just turned traitor, and you have to battle off. Usually, the traitor is a bit more OP than because you think it's like what's 2v1, 3v1, 4v1. It's not necessarily the case. It's because of the number outweighs the opponent in this case. But it's so much fun because you have so much variety and immersive. It's just crazy how much fun you can get into this game.
Yeah, and the variant of Betrayal, which is Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, takes on a complete theme of D&D. So it brings in D&D characters, bringing in the races and classes, and it brings in monsters and beings from the D&D universe. And I think that can also add its own flair in role playing, because those who are really into D&D, like we mentioned before, can't get a party together but would like to play, this is, I think, the game for you guys.
Definitely. Whenever I feel like playing D&D, but I don't really want to either be the dungeon master because I'm usually the dungeon master, or there's no time to pull out quick one shots, so to speak. This is the board game that is going to do it for you. So the board game acts as your dungeon master because it gives you these random scenarios that the designers already planned for you.
Definitely, and the game itself also comes with really cool and awesome miniatures and tiles. And actually, in fact, speaking of miniatures, we do have a sponsor for this episode, the Miniature Corner, that does 3D printing for all kinds of custom 3D miniatures for your role playing games. And they are offering you guys, our listeners, a 10% discount code on anything 3D printing from their Facebook store page if you use the promo code PlayUp21. That is PlayUp21 for a 10% discount, and you can find these guys on Facebook, the Miniature Corner Studio.
And they are tried and tested by the dungeon masters of PlayUp Legends. The two dungeon masters that are with me actually got a drink placeholder, so it's like a design mug.
Oh, I want to get myself one of those.
They're quite cool. You can't drink from them, by the way. The only thing you can do is put a can. I think it's like beer can or like an energy
Energy
drink
drink,
can.
yeah.
That's you can put into it and drink from the mug itself. Just kind of keeping your hands away from the coldness of the can with a really cool design, just to kind of put that emphasis that you are the dungeon master. I think JP has the dwarven looking one,
Oh, he
while
does. Yes, it looks so cool. He showed it off on stream the other day.
exactly, and then you have Paul who has the demon horn one.
Oh, I love that one as well. They're just so good. You got one too?
Yes, well, not one of those. I actually requested for a dice tower. I've been meaning to get myself a dice tower, and I finally got one. It's really well printed, and the artwork design, high quality finish, amazing. These guys, you gotta check them out.
Definitely check them out. Another company business to check out is thegiantstower.com. Now, these guys also do 3D printing. However, they do pre-made miniatures. So you got everything from scenery, like little barrels, rocks, maybe tables that you can use for your tabletop RPG games. And they're also offering you guys a discount of 15% off the total bill if you use the promo code PlayUp15. That is all uppercase PlayUp15.
What's really cool about these guys is their theme, and in fact, I think we're gonna get our hands on it very soon. They have different themes, like Egyptian themed, Viking themed, and that's what I was about to mention. Since we're doing a Viking campaign between us friends, I think we might actually get our hands on a Viking themed map,
Oh,
miniatures,
we're
and all
gonna
of
be
that
ordering
stuff.
that stuff, Don.
I'm definitely gonna be using the discount code for that.
Most definitely. And finally, on our list for sponsors, you guys, we have warmongergamesmalta.com. These guys offer everything gaming related: board games, card games. They have all the kinds of expansion packs. They got dice games, literally anything related to board games and card games. You guys should head over to these guys and check them out. They're offering a 10% discount off of all board games that are not currently discounted, over 30 euros. The promo code is PlayUpNC0440. That is all caps, PlayUpNC0440. Now, this expires on the 4th of April, so hurry up and grab that promo code before it expires, guys.
Yeah, in fact, Warmonger Games Malta actually have a couple of games that we're mentioning right now on stream. And following up with is a game that I want to get my hands on because the minute I saw it, I loved it. The design is amazing. Is Stuffed Fables. So, Stuffed Fables, for those of you who don't know what it is a form of RPG where you are a soft toy with your stats, health, strength and whatnot, right? And you're there to protect your human from the monsters that lurk from under her bed at night. And usually it's a kind of scenario by scenario situation, very similar to another RPG, Gloomhaven, where every scenario starts to unlock new things for you, new abilities, new cards, and you start popping open cards that you're not allowed to kind of open, kind of like Legacy, I would think.
Yeah.
So this is once again, this is a board game which is kind of RPG themed in its own respect, bringing out a new fun way to look at RPG by becoming a soft toy for your human.
Oh, we can all relate to that scene in Toy Story, where Buzz and Woody find themselves in a in like a twisted neighborhood, trying to get back to Andy's room. I have to go through all of these kind of deformed toys. It's sort of kind of that feel, but instead you're like protecting a girl from her childhood nightmares, as you said. And I think it is such an interesting take on an RPG board game. It is so unique. It's very kid friendly. You get to arm your stuffed animals, your toys, with all these sort of items and ready to perform. Get up there and help your owner, basically.
Yeah, and I can see myself kind of RPing a specific soft toy, especially since this is very much campaign based as well, because it runs you through, I think, about 30 different scenarios that you go through one after the other. Usually, when you do that, you kind of stick to your character that you've already chosen from the beginning of the game. So I would say, for example, there's a lion soft toy, I'd probably pick that. It's that brave little lion, So I can imagine actually role playing the lion as we go along, as you go kind of, once you go through the mechanics and you go deeper into the story of what's going on in that bedroom, then I think the opportunity of RPing presents itself.
I think it does. Again, I haven't played this game myself, and I really do look forward to trying out this game in the future. As I've been reading about the game, it is quite heavily focused on dice mechanics for the game. So I'm not sure how that can or cannot impact sort of the element of role playing. But for sure, dude, wanting to live out your favorite Toy Story moments, in real life on a game, I think that's so cool.
Going on to the next board game, which I think we go back to the theme of Dungeons and Dragons, and I think it was like one of the very early on takes on doing an RPG themed board game. And in fact, it's very hard to find a printout off the shelf. You might have to buy it secondhand because I don't think they reprint them anymore. I'm not quite sure. I have to do my research on that, unfortunately. Mice and Mystics.
Oh yeah, Mice and Mystics.
So basically, you're a mouse inside a dungeon of its own sort. The dungeon's usually built up kind of random. It's not just a preset place board game, and there are different mice. So you have the warrior, the wizard, some of the classes that we're used to, and basically you're battling through a scenario where again it's a dungeon crawler, and you're just trying to find yourself in the right room for the treasure, which is usually cheese, I think. Again, I haven't played this game myself. I've seen playthroughs of it. Thematically, it is RPG, but I haven't seen anyone from the reviews I've seen or the playthroughs I've seen that actually give the opportunity to actually role play. I mean, how do you, if you're all mice, how do you actually role play just because you have a different class, right?
Yeah, I mean, are you going to be imagining that these mice can speak? Are you going to be like sort of that?
Squeak, squeak, squeak.
Yeah, it actually it reminds me of a couple of characters that you created, but we won't bring that up now.
No,
but yeah, it is a very cooperative based adventure game, and I think maybe the role playing comes in when players have to sort of work together to save the kingdom. Maybe people who like cheese a lot can get into role playing this game a bit more because of the goal of cheese and the cheese system in the game. But maybe beyond that, it's very difficult to role play, I would think, a mouse in this game.
Then there's another board game that comes to the top of my head. Love it a bit. Other people hate it for whatever reason. But I think anyone who appreciates the hard work and effort and you're into post apocalyptic scenarios or you're into zombies is Dead of Winter.
Oh, Dead of Winter is such a good game. We've only played it. I think we've only ever played it once or twice because of the difficulty in setting it up and things like that. However, yeah, I do agree. There are definitely role playing elements that can come into the game, especially if you really get into that sense of oh, we're freezing, we need to find food before the day runs out. We've got so many people to feed. Yeah.
They have this thing which is called the Crossroad deck, right? So basically, just for people who have never played Dead of Winter, if you want to look it up for yourself, it's a really good game. So you're a bunch of survivors and you have built or found shelter in a colony system, right? And each player gets about two different characters, right? And the idea is that there's a main goal that everyone has to reach, and then everyone has their own personal goal that they have to reach inside of this colony system. And you get to venture out to like the police station, the pharmacy or hospital, grocery store. So you're looking for food for survival, and then you're looking for items that you need to survive through the crisis, fight off zombies from overrunning the colony. There's a lot going on there. But then they have this crossroad deck, which basically is these one-off random scenarios that you might encounter if you do a specific move or you're in a specific location, and it triggers off a storytelling scenario where your character is put into a position of choosing what to do, and there's an outcome.
That could definitely offer the opportunity for characters to roleplay, especially the way the person might read the story of the card and how people might be able to discuss which option or which scenario they're going to choose. And being put on the spot, making very frequent, difficult, heavily thematic decisions is definitely a way to encourage role playing in a board game. And I think they really did a good job of it here.
And in fact, they also have what Betrayal has. They have the traitor mechanic, which is optional if you want to make the game a bit harder than it already is, where someone can actually try to look that they are part of the gang. However, in secret, they're trying to sabotage everything that everyone's doing to achieve. Because that's the traitor's goal there. It is to make everyone lose, basically. However, there is the option if you kind of have a good feel and a gut feeling that someone is the traitor, you can actually ask for a vote to expel him from the colony. So that gives another opportunity for role playing right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the role playing in itself has to really come in. If you want to be a good traitor, for example, you really have to role play so well so people don't find out.
So again, what we're saying is role playing, these are themed. Not necessarily all board games that are themed to be representing RPG means that there is an opportunity for role playing. Most of the role playing does not give benefits or penalties in these cases.
Yeah, it's like if you want to role play, you can role play for the fun of it. If you don't want to role play and you want to stick more to the mechanics of it, that's great as well. At the end of the day, you're working towards the goal of the board game, so role playing won't hinder that.
It just adds more fun, like Ben said. It's the immersion into the game that leaves that sweet bitter taste of when you're actually playing the game. And why do I use sweet bitter? Because sometimes if you're role playing as the bad guy, you kind of feel bad you're in that scenario. Other people crave it. I know, for example, one of our friends crave to be the bad guy all the time, especially at Betrayal.
Oh yeah, all the time. Just fingers crossed, hoping to
She
be
gets such a
the
kick
traitor.
out of it.
But some people do, because maybe, it might be because of the extra possibilities of role playing with being the traitor,
That's very true. That's
right?
very true.
Yeah.
So thanks again for listening, guys.
Thanks again for listening, guys. Remember, if you want to get any of the board games that we spoke about earlier, please do check out warmongergamesmalta.com. They're great. If you want to get some miniatures or 3D printing, do keep in mind the Miniature Corner Studio on Facebook and thegiantstower.com. Thank you guys so much for those sponsors. They help us do what we do.
And if you want to support us directly, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/playupmt. And you can support us for as little as €3 per month, guys. It doesn't take much, but every little bit helps us to actually produce better quality podcasts and other things like events and videos.
Yeah, so this has been us for this episode. We hope you enjoyed, and we'd love to catch you in the next one. Take care and see you next time.